Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live a life backwards, starting with the ending, Anne? Slowly working your way back to the beginning? Meet Reese, a young architect. Sharp lines and right angles were his life. Order, precision, the unwavering certainty of blueprints, that's what he understood. Emotion? Messy. Uncertainty? Intolerable. His grandfather, a man named Caius, was everything Reese wasn't. Caius was a whirlwind of color and chaos, a gardener whose hands were permanently stained with earth, a man whose life was a sprawling, untamed field. Reese received a call one Tuesday morning. Caius had fallen. Nothing life-threatening, the nurse assured him. But he was asking for Reese. Reese hadn't visited Caius in months, too absorbed in the relentless demands of his burgeoning career. Guilt, a feeling as unfamiliar as it was unwelcome, gnawed at him. The drive to Caius's rambling farmhouse felt longer than Reese remembered. The house itself, shrouded in ivy and surrounded by an explosion of flowers, felt like a deliberate affront to his aesthetic sensibilities. Inside, Caius lay in bed, looking smaller than Reese recalled, but his eyes still held that mischievous sparkle. "Reese, my boy," Caius rasped, his voice weaker than Reese had ever heard it. He gestured for Reese to sit beside him. "Come closer. I haven't got all day, you know." Reese managed a weak smile. "You'll be back in the garden in no time, grandfather." Caius chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "No, Reese. My garden days are coming to an end. That's why I need to tell you something." He paused, gathering his strength. "I want you to understand something about regret. It's a tricky weed, Reese, and I've let it grow too long." Reese frowned. "Regret? You? You always seemed so content." Caius shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Contentment is a surface sheen, Reese. Underneath, we all have our shadows. Mine is Ilara." Reese had never heard that name before. "Ilara?" "A woman I loved many years ago, before your grandmother. I let her go because of fear." "Because of?" "What I thought was practicality. I chose safety over the wild, untamed beauty of real love." Caius closed his eyes, a visible tremor running through his frail frame. "Don't make my mistake, Reese. Don't let blueprints dictate your heart." Reese, ever the pragmatist, struggled to grasp the weight of this confession. "Grandfather, that was a long time ago. Time doesn't diminish regret, Reese. It entrenches it. It allows the weed to sink its roots deeper." Caius opened his eyes, his gaze piercing. "Promise me you won't live a life ruled by fear and practicality. Promise me you'll chase the wild, untamed beauty, even if it scares you." Reese, moved by the raw emotion in his grandfather's voice, gave a hesitant nod. I promise." Caius squeezed his hand, a faint pressure. "Good. Now, enough of this morbid talk. Tell me about your buildings. Are they as soulless as you are making them sound?" Reese, surprised by the jibe, felt a flicker of defensiveness. He spent the next hour describing his latest project, a gleaming, ultra-modern skyscraper, all glass and steel, a testament to his ambition and precision. As he spoke, he noticed Caius's silence, his lack of enthusiasm. It was unlike him. "It sounds efficient," Caius finally said, his voice carefully neutral. "But does it have a soul, Reese? Does it breathe?" Reese bristled. "It's a building, grandfather." "Not a living thing?" "Everything's a living thing, Reese. Even stone, even steel. It's about the energy you imbue it with. Where is the human touch? Where is the imperfection?" Reese scoffed internally. Imperfection was the enemy. Imperfection was failure. He changed the subject, steering the conversation towards safer territory. But Caius's words lingered like a stubborn draft in the meticulously sealed rooms of his mind. Over the next few days, Reese visited Caius every day. He found himself drawn into his grandfather's world, a world of vibrant colors, earthy smells, and unconventional wisdom. Caius shared stories of his life, not just the triumphs, but also the failures, the heartaches, the moments of profound doubt. He spoke of the importance of embracing imperfection, of learning from mistakes, and of finding beauty in the unexpected. One afternoon, Reese found Caius weaker than usual. He was lying in bed, his breathing shallow and ragged. Beside him, on the bedside table, was a faded photograph of a young woman with laughing eyes and windswept hair. Alara, Reese said softly, recognizing the name. Caius managed a weak smile. Yes, my Alara. I carried her memory with me, like a stone in my shoe, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. Reese picked up the photograph, studying the woman's face. She radiated a joy, a freedom that he rarely saw in the faces of the people he knew. Did you ever see her again? Caius shook his head. No. I was too proud, too stubborn, too afraid. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. That's another kind of regret, Reese. The regret of inaction. The things you didn't do, the words you didn't say. Reese sat in silence, absorbing the weight of his grandfather's words. He thought about his own life, his own relationships. He thought about Anya, a woman he'd met at a conference a year ago. She was an artist, a sculptor, a free spirit who saw the world through a different lens. He'd been drawn to her vibrancy, her passion. But he'd ultimately pushed her away. She was too unpredictable, too challenging. He'd opted for the safe, predictable comfort of his work. A wave of realization washed over him, a sudden, sharp clarity. He was repeating his grandfather's mistakes. He was choosing safety over the wild, untamed beauty of real connection. I need to call someone, Reese stammered, rising to his feet. Caius opened his eyes, a knowing look in them.
Anya.
Reese nodded, his throat tight. Yes. It's not too late, is it? Caius smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that filled the room with warmth. It's never too late, Reese. As long as you're still breathing. But don't wait. Time slips through your fingers like sand. Reese hurried out of the room, his heart pounding in his chest. He found his phone and scrolled through his contacts, his fingers trembling. He found Anya's number and pressed dial. Each ring felt like an eternity. Finally, she answered. Reese? Is that you? Her voice was hesitant, surprise. He took a deep breath.
Anya, it's me. I know it's been a while.
But I need to tell you something. He paused, gathering his courage. I made a mistake. I was afraid, but I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to see you. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Anya spoke, her voice soft, but firm. Where are you? Reese told her. I'll be there in an hour, she said. Reese hung up the phone, his hand shaking. He returned to Caius's room, a sense of profound relief washing over him. He sat beside his grandfather's bed, taking his hand. She's coming, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Caius squeezed his hand, his eyes closed. Good. Now tell me about your skyscraper. Tell me how you're going to give it a soul. Reese smiled. He started to talk about his building, but this time he didn't talk about efficiency and precision. He talked about light and shadow, about texture and form, about the human experience. He talked about how he could incorporate elements of nature, how he could create spaces that inspired and uplifted, how he could imbue the cold steel and glass with warmth and humanity. He spoke for hours, until the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room. Caius listened intently, his eyes closed, a peaceful smile on his face. A little later, Anya arrived. Reese met her at the door, his heart pounding. She looked even more beautiful than he remembered, her eyes sparkling with intelligence and warmth. Reese, she said, her voice soft. He took her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. Thank you for coming. He led her to Caius's room. She approached the bed hesitantly, her eyes filled with compassion. Caius, Reese said softly. This is Anya. Caius opened his eyes, his gaze focusing on Anya. He smiled, a feint. but genuine smile. "Welcome, my dear," he whispered. "Reese has told me so much about you." Anya smiled back, taking Caius's hand. She sat beside him, and they talked for a long time about art, about life, about love. Reese watched them, feeling a sense of deep gratitude and contentment. Caius passed away peacefully that night, with Reese and Anya by his side. He died knowing that his grandson had learned his lesson, that he had chosen love over fear, that he had finally found his own path to happiness. Reese never forgot his grandfather's words. He redesigned his skyscraper, incorporating elements of nature, creating spaces that were both functional and beautiful. He and Anya built a life together, a life filled with passion, creativity, and unwavering love. He often thought about Caius's regret over Lara in the photograph he kept. He came to realize that regret wasn't something to be feared, but something to be learned from. It was a compass pointing you in the direction you needed to go. The lessons of one generation passed to the next like seeds carried on the wind, taking root in unexpected places, blossoming into something beautiful and new. It was a reminder that life is a garden, constantly evolving, constantly growing, and that even in the midst of weeds, there's always the possibility of finding beauty.